I'm Shannon. And if you are one of those people that absolutely hates unsolved cases, this is probably not the video for you. This is one of those cases that makes me so mad. So I'm just going to tell you all about it, and we'll talk about it at the end. But this is the unsolved case, the unsolved murder of 20-year-old Kristin O'Connell. Phyllis O'Connell has been writing the same murder mystery for nearly 36 years. It sounds like a dime store novel, she says, but Phyllis's book is not fiction. It's a true crime story about her frustrating journey to find justice for her daughter, Kristin. Phyllis describes Kristin as kind, outgoing, and charitable. She recalled a time when Kristin volunteered to babysit the children of women staying at a shelter for domestic abuse victims while she was in high school. Phyllis shared her concerns, but ultimately allowed her daughter to take on the job after Kristin insisted. She apparently got a job working at this shelter, and she told her mom, she said, if I can go help them watch their kids while they need to go to counseling, I want to donate my time so that they are able to go. And another time, Kristin loaned her one of her family's cars to a man at work so that he could drive up north to see his kids. Phyllis said, I guess his car had broken down and it was his turn to see his kiddos, and Kristin did not want him to miss this opportunity. So she just loaned him her car. And Phyllis remembers looking at her husband and saying, well, there goes that car. But Kristin apparently never doubted for a minute that this man would bring her car back. And he did. So she had faith in people. She was a 1983 graduate of Burnsville High School. And she worked at the old Rack's roast beef in Burnsville, which we had a Rack's. I think that building is cursed. It doesn't matter. No business can stay there since the Rack's was there. Kristin was absolutely beloved by her friends in Burnsville and at the University of Wisconsin, Stout, where she went to study hotel and restaurant management, hoping to someday move and work in Hawaii. Her mother said that she had this very moral idea of saving herself for the person that she married. So she wasn't promiscuous, she wasn't out running around, and Phyllis believes that as a mother and daughter, they really only ever had one argument. They shopped, they baked cookies, they were exceptionally close, and if you asked Phyllis, what do you want in a daughter, it would have been Kristin. So when 20-year-old Kristin O'Connell asked if she could travel to New York to visit a guy that she had met while on spring break in Florida a couple months earlier, her mom's first wanted to go to Florida. They wanted to go to Fort Lauderdale, actually. But Phyllis suggested kind of a less chaotic place, like Sanibel Island. So the girls agreed, and they went to Sanibel, and they went to, I think, Cantina Island. The records on this case are very vague, so somewhere on that trip is when Kristin met a young man named James, or Jim, from Meersich. And she was reportedly charmed by him from the moment he approached her. The two of them developed a friendship, and it wasn't long after they both got home to their respective states of Minnesota and New York that he invited her to come for a visit. He lived in a town called Ovid, New York. They talked so much that she really wanted to go see him before starting her junior year. So they made plans for her to travel from Minnesota to New York and to stay with him at his parents' house. But again, Kristin's mother was pretty hesitant of this idea. But her father, Mike, reminded Phyllis that their daughter wasn't a child anymore. She was an adult. She could make her own decisions. And Phyllis does say Mike was right. Chris had always been a sensible child, and I trusted her judgment. Now, they were smart, and to ensure Kristin's safety and to put their own minds at peace, they arranged for her to fly to Boston instead of New York City. And they had one of Mike's business associates meet Kristin at the airport and drive her to Jim's parents' house in Ovid, so he got to meet them. He knew where she was, all this stuff. I did find it a little weird that maybe one of her parents didn't go with her, but, it's 1985. Maybe they couldn't afford it to travel there and travel back, and, So, a week before Kristin leaves for New York, she goes into her mom's room, and she sits on her mom's bed, and she says, "Mom, I just want you to know how much I love you." And Phyllis says, "Well, I love you too, sis." It was apparently a name she frequently called her daughter, and I think it's adorable. Phyllis remembers that the two of them would just spend hours together discussing Kristin's future plans, her dreams. And on the day that Kristin left for New York, she went to her mother's bedroom one last time. Phyllis told her how nice she looked in her outfit, and recalls that Kristin was absolutely bright with excitement to go see her friend. She tells her daughter to call her when she's there so she doesn't worry. And Kristin responds, "I will, Mom." But this was the last time that Phyllis would ever see her daughter alive again. Kristin had only been in New York for 2 days when she calls her mom from a payphone and tells her that she's cutting her trip short. Something wasn't right in her voice, Phyllis says. "I asked her if she was having a good time, but I should have pressed harder to find out what was wrong." She said, "Mom, I've decided to leave. I'm gonna come home early." And Phyllis recalls that her daughter was going to stop and visit some friends in Boston before heading home, but told her that everything was all right, but she was just ready to come home. That same night, Kristin disappeared. According to the New York State Police, Kristin was at a party at the house where Jim was living, on Country Road 139, just west of the Golden Buck restaurant in Ovid. Witnesses told police that it was around 11:30 p.m. when they saw Kristin walking down Country Road missing. Phyllis, of course, still remembers the day they got this phone call vividly. She described the morning of August 15th as holding the promise of a perfect Midwestern summer day, as she headed to her job as a commercial real estate broker, and yet she felt that sense of foreboding that she just couldn't shake. When she got home from work that day, her husband was awaiting her with news. Their daughter was missing. Kristin's younger brother, Kyle, was just 15, and he was home alone in 1985 when the New York police called with the news that his sister was missing. And nearly 36 years later, Kyle can't forget his mom's reaction when she got home and got the news. Dad had told her, and the shrill scream that she let out, she knew that she was gone. Phyllis said, "I could tell that Mike was scared. Here was this man who had always been my rock. This man who was never frightened. He was the most confident individual I had ever met. And he was standing there with his face radiating stark, raw fear." Now, Kristin's disappearance really didn't make any sense to her parents. Neither did the fact that she was last seen walking barefoot without any sort of a purse. This wasn't like Kristin. It really didn't make any sense at all to her parents. So Phyllis waited by the phone at home in Burnsville, Minnesota, and Mike and some family friends traveled to New York to help with the search for Kristin. 2 days later, she was found. She was nude. She was soaked in rain, and she was found in a 6-foot-tall, overgrown cornfield, less than 1/4 mile from where she was staying at Jim's house. Kristin had suffered multiple stab wounds to her torso, and her throat had been slit. Her autopsy report revealed that she was alcohol-free, and there were no signs of sexual assault. And her clothing had been found nearby in a pile. Phyllis remembers vividly the moment her husband called to tell her that Kristin had been found. "My heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest," she said. "I couldn't breathe. It felt as though the room was suffocating me. And then I just broke down in sobs." Kristin's brutal murder stunned not only the community of Burnsville, Minnesota, but also the small village of Ovid, New York. Phyllis said that those people that knew Kristin were completely shocked that something so horrific could happen to such a kind, loving soul. They all just couldn't believe anyone would try to kill Kristin. She truly had a heart of gold. So there's not much more details about what happened that night. The only other evidence I guess I could tell you about this is a pair of motorists reported seeing Kristin walking that night, and she was followed by 2 men in their early 20s, while a third followed in a dark sedan. At the time, police said that she didn't argue with anyone at the party, but she was known to take frequent walks. Phyllis believes maybe they were smoking marijuana at this party, and that is why Kristin didn't feel was just a crime of opportunity committed by a random stranger passing through town. Okay, from the start, it's been a really tough murder to solve. It rained the night of her murder, which washed away a lot of the evidence at the crime scene. Now, of course, there are rumors that have persisted since this murder, and some people in Ovid claim to know exactly what happened and who was responsible. I only found tidbits of that rumor, and I'll tell you about it in just a little. Phyllis faults the state police, among many other things, for not following up on leads outside of New York. To have family members go through what I've gone through over the years is just uncalled for, she says. We, as taxpayers, our money goes towards the police to protect us, to solve crimes, and when that isn't happening, we need to do something about it. This person took away my life, my grandchildren, my dreams. So Phyllis has promised her daughter that she will never rest until the person is arrested who murdered her. She said, "It has been my challenge for 36 years to try to find out who did this. I am never going to give up until I die. I want to know who did it. I want to know why they did it. I mean, my God, my child wouldn't have even hurt a fly." So, these memories of Kristin, her sitting in her room, all of these things that I've told you in this video, these are the memories that Phyllis holds on to as she continues to plead for answers. She's over 80 years old now, and she has consistently led the effort to find her daughter's killer. Her husband Mike died of cancer 7 years after Kristin's murder, so Phyllis has been on her own ever since, with her brother Kyle, of course. I think there are people up there in New York who know what happened, but they're afraid to come forward. I think people are scared. Over the years, the O'Connell family has hired private investigators and retired New York State Police investigators to assist in trying to solve this case. Phyllis herself has traveled to Ovid and walked up and down the road where her daughter was last seen alive. She's consulted psychics, she's consulted everyone, but year after year, she is just left without answers. "I know I can't bring her back," Phyllis said, "but I can't rest until I find out who did this to her." Now, in 2021, Kristin's family has a new offer for help from a true crime investigative documentary series. Producers have assembled a cold case investigative unit to offer fresh eyes on this investigation, and they have offered to work alongside the New York State Police. "We want to help, and we're offering them this fresh set of eyes," said documentary producer Christopher Pavlik. "We're offering a forensic lab that's available to test all of the physical evidence in Kristin's case at no cost to the state of New York." But they hit a roadblock. Amazingly, the New York State Police declined this offer for help, stating that it is against their policy for outsiders to be brought into an investigation. New York State Police Troop spokesman Mark O'Donnell issued a statement, and he said, sure or if it was planned by someone she knew. And although hundreds of people have been interviewed, no one has ever been arrested or even named as a suspect in her death. Many people have come and gone through the community over the years, but it's hard to find someone who hasn't heard Kristin's story. Lynne O'Black learned of the case when she moved to Ovid with her husband a few years ago, and her first question was, why is this not solved? So she took it upon herself to reach out to Phyllis with the help of Uncovered. This case is getting more attention, especially across social media. There is a Facebook page called Kristin O'Donnell's Unsolved Murder. Lynne says that she believes the media attention and the work by this documentary team led by Pavlik is what will finally solve Kristin's case. She said that was our question. How do we make more noise? How do we put pressure where it needs to be put so they look into this case? She adds that they hope that the officials will change their minds and decide to utilize the resources Pavlik's team is offering. And for Phyllis, who is writing this book about her daughter's case, there's still one very important piece missing. The end. And she hopes the ending will be justice. She said, I promised her I wouldn't rest until I find out who killed her. I promised I wouldn't give up until I get an ending to her story. The ending she deserves. Anyone with information about Kristin O'Connell's case is asked to call the New York State Police Troop E Major Crimes Unit at 585-398-4100, and I will include that phone number in the description box down below. So let's talk about this a little. Okay, one of the rumors that I saw was in this really kind of disjointed article that I couldn't even bring quotes from it to share with you. So apparently there's this guy in Ovid, and I couldn't even find out what it was, so I hate to even bring it up. He has painted something on his fence that says, like, we had a pig roast that night. Apparently he has been questioned in this case because his sister remembers him coming home covered in blood the night of Kristin's murder. But he has been questioned. He has passed a polygraph. He's been questioned again. His friends have been questioned. Everyone remembers him being here, being at this pig roast. And he says he was covered in blood because of the pig. I don't know, that seems really weird to me. Why didn't you change your clothes? Like, you just partied all covered in blood. But whatever. I couldn't even, like, see the whole thing of what was written on the fence, so I didn't want to, like, mention the whole thing to you, but, okay, so, oh, the neighbor's dogs are barking. I should have filmed this earlier. Okay. I do not, at first I did, but I do not think it's strange that Kristin met this guy in Florida and then traveled to see him. I mean, in the 80s, long-distance phone calls were so expensive. You know, I'm sure they were writing letters and things like that. Couldn't find any evidence of it, but I'm just assuming. I mean, I wrote letters to my friends in the 90s and early 2000s, so. because you honestly don't know a person until you live with them. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, so stick with me. So I honestly think that relationships and friendships are tested when you like go on a vacation with a person because you cannot get away. Like, it is different when you're starting this relationship and you're all doing your own thing. Like, you're going to work and you're hanging out with your friends and you're doing this and you're doing that. But when you go on a vacation with someone, you're literally like trapped with them, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't get any breaks, you don't get any downtime. And we all know, at least I know, even the best of friends fight when you spend too much time with someone. Like, you just need like this separation, because even though you may be good friends and you may get along really well, eventually you really start to get on each other's nerves. And so it is of my own beliefs that if you want to know if a relationship will work, take a vacation with somebody. Spend a week with them uninterrupted, and you will know whether or not you want to spend time with this person. So maybe like the honeymoon phase wore off. That's the only way I can phrase it. Very quickly. She was there for 2 days and this guy didn't talk to her, or he was annoying, or, you know, it said that she was known to take frequent walks. Why was she known to take frequent walks? She didn't know where she was. She didn't know where she was going. She was all alone in New York. Why was she taking frequent walks from this guy's house? Like, I need more information than that. Yo. Like, what is that? So I have to wonder if maybe he was just not really giving her the attention that she wanted, completely understandably. Like, I flew halfway across the country to hang out with you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, or am I completely off my rocker here, y'all? Don't answer that, because I know the answer. Maybe not about that theory, though. So I have to wonder if that's why she was gonna come home. Now, if she had just, I hate to say this, if she had just simply gone missing, if I was reporting to you on a missing person's case, I could have so many more theories in this case. Because she was supposed to travel to Boston to visit friends. What friends? Why? Why was she stopping there to see friends instead of going directly home? Now, maybe her flight was out of Boston. How was she gonna get there? Was this gym guy gonna take her? I don't know. I need to know more about this gym guy. And I hate that I couldn't find anything about whether or not he was questioned or polygraphed or anything. She went missing for 13 hours. I mean, he did do the right thing and call her parents and the police. I don't know. I want to know more about the 3 men that were following her. Who was that? Why don't we have a more detailed report of this group of men? Because they really had to be the ones that hurt her. There were reports of neighbors hearing one shrill scream, which is horrifying. It had to be her. It had to. Why was she nude but not assaulted? I mean, I have to think that even though it rained, there would be evidence of an assault because she was not active. So there would be, right? I don't know. It wasn't a robbery. She didn't even have her purse. I couldn't find any reports of if she had jewelry and if the jewelry was missing, but still, this case sucks, guys. It sucks, and I'm mad. Like, I want Kristin's mom to find justice for her daughter, and I don't understand why the New York State Police are not taking the offer of this documentary team in order to have all this evidence tested for free. Like, who turns down an opportunity like that, especially in this day and age where we are getting these 20, 30, 40-year-old cases solved? Who turns down free help? Like, who does that? I mean, they're not getting anywhere with the team that they have and the evidence that they have. other people in and help. I don't understand why they don't want to do this, especially with the word free attached. Like, I mean, you attach the word free, come on. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please tell me down below what you think happened to Kristin O'Connell. I'm gonna cut this short, and because you can